The Rovers return. Since 1960, it's been Britain's most famous and best-loved pub. And behind the bar all that time, a succession of Rovers barmaids, 35 of them no less.
What? It is a pub?
This lot don't just pull pints, not in the Weatherfield hotbed of passion and scandal.
I think everybody'd love to go and have a pint in Coronation Street.
Every barmaid we go up, the lads behind the bar look her up and down from behind, they look at her legs, so I think, you know, that makes a good barmaid.
A favourite subject of every man who's ever stood at a bar in a pub, I think, has to be, for Coronation Street, it was a wonderful Sarah Lancashire.
You can't ever trust a barmaid because they pull pints.
For me, like growing up, I mean, it's got to be Pet Gilroy.
Maria, because she did have a small stint as a barmaid. She wasn't very good, but she did try, and she is my flatmate, so I've got to stick up for her.
The Rovers is definitely the best pub in television shows.
Coming up in this programme, meet some of the biggest, baddest and brassiest of Corrie barmaids. We go behind the scenes in the Rovers and find out what it's really like serving Newton and Ridley's for a living. The present Queen of the Rovers is Shelley Unwin, played by actress Sally Lindsay. She started at the Rovers 2 years ago. Perhaps surprisingly, Sally grew up in a pub.
So, you're back from your mission of mercy, are you? Grandma better?
Look, I'm sorry about that, Shell.
You know, for someone who's been sat next to a sick bed, you've got one hell of a suntan. I didn't actually audition for Shelley. Shelley was written for me. And I was given 7 episodes.
What can I get you?
She sort of started out being quite brash, because when you start in Coronation Street, you have to sort of make an impact pretty quickly, else you see the door, basically.
So come on then, what do you do?
I do what you do.
What I do?
Only I do it better than you do. I remember my first scene like it was yesterday. I didn't want them to think I was rubbish. That was my biggest fear. I didn't want to think I didn't know what I was doing.
Shelley!
Come here, Crush, and show me how much you missed me!
Come on!
And they went, right, action. And I walked in and I got the door on, because in the Rovers, because the backing's not too chipper, you have to open it in a certain way. So I was like that for ages, like Mrs O at the door. And they went, cut! I knew Dougie Ferguson when he was worth a second look. And then I had to get my mum to pick me up at the age of 27 because I couldn't drive. I was that nervous. And then I was sick in my mum's bathroom with nerves. How ridiculous is that?
The barmaids are still quite forceful and controlling, and I think that's why, you know, behind the bar it works so well. But, you know, always in Coronation Street, the women's got the upper hand.
It's an absolute honour to be a barmaid in the Rovers. It's an absolute double honour to be a successful barmaid in the Rovers, and it's a treble honour to be a successful blonde barmaid in the Rovers.
And action.
Barmaids in Coronation Street, I think, above any other soap, are integral to the storylines because they can be the sounding board, because everything happens in the Rovers. So the barmaids can join in any conversation at any time because they know everybody's business. Now, I've been a barmaid since I was 17 anyway. During university, during drama school, when I was out of work, I've always been a barmaid. My dad owns a pub. So I know the importance of barmaids. They know everything about everything.
She's right. Sally is the latest of many turns who have worked in the Rovers and have then gone on to become household names.
I think it's very early days for a character like Shelley. She's only been there a couple of years, and, you know, you want to be very careful before you start comparing people with, you know, the Annie Walkers and the Betts and the Raquels, because they have their place in history now. However, I think Sally Lindsay's doing a fantastic job. She has a lot of the qualities of a great Rovers barmaid.
She's got a massive amount of energy. So if you work with her all day, she keeps the energy up, you know.
She works very well behind the bar. She's very believable. She's got a personality and a presence, which is very important.
You can kind of read each other a bit now, and it's exciting like that. And that's when you do your best work.
I think she's shaping up really well, actually, as a Rovers barmaid, but it's probably a little early to say where she'll stand in the whole history of the pub.
Shelley may act grown up whilst running the Rovers, but a girl does need her mum around for support.
I love Susie and Sally behind the bar, Shelley and Bev. I think they're great. A mother and daughter team, I think, is always great behind the Rovers.
You can learn a lot from me, Mum.
Like what? How to act like a teenager and dress like a slut?
Some of the younger barmaids, from Samantha Thalesworth on a motorbike to, you know, Sammy Agardi as Maria, who's a bit of a vixen, and even Tracy, even though she was hopeless, are just sheer totty. Shelley, however, is, although she's a lot younger, is a barmaid in the old tradition, like Eve Elliott was. You don't mess with them, you know, they know what they're doing. And also Shelley's mum has been in the trade a long time, so I think she's a more old-fashioned barmaid. Some of them are just eye candy and can't pull a pint to save their lives.
A barmaid that wasn't good was the little girl that plays Maria. The little one, she's pretty but hadn't got a clue. As a barmaid, hopeless. She filled my shoes with beer 2 or 3 times. So she did. First day in, pulling them out, my shoes floating. Oh, she hadn't got a clue. She didn't know how to pull a pint.
Looks-wise, Maria Sutherland was definitely the best barmaid ever in Coronation Street. I was gutted when she lost her job at the Rovers.
Out went one useless barmaid, in came another. A right nasty piece of work.
Tracy is not barmaid material.
Tracy was an awful barmaid. I mean, she can't stand being told what to do. She's incredibly lazy, so she just couldn't be bothered. I mean, I think she polished the same glass for half an hour just to pretend she looked like she was doing something.
Barmaid should be open, loving, friendly, jolly. Tracy can be vicious and vindictive and very sarcastic or whatever. She can be tough in what she says.
Just trying to get you in focus.
You what?
But yours bob up and down like that. You're like a nodding dog.
I don't think Tracy's an ideal barmaid.
Well, I did one day in the Rovers, and thank God for that, because it's very difficult. You've got to think of things to do all the time behind that bar. So I was actually quite pleased that she got fired.
Fine. Well, I want my wages then.
I think you drank them already. Now go on, sling your up.
You're sad, you know that?
Today's lazy young barmaids wouldn't know hard work if it bit them. Not like Bet and Raquel.
Good riddance to her. Do you know, we were always having to clean up after me and Better.
The silver screen stars of the Rovers are coming up in part 2.
Raquel is a fairy tale princess. She was the Marilyn Monroe of Weatherfield.
Coronation Street has seen many barmaids over the years, but none was more at home in the Rovers than the queen of the cleavage, Bet Lynch. Julie Goodyear played Bet for more than 25 years.
I think Bet Lynch, for me, is one of the all-time great Coronation Street characters.
No, I could just as easily be serving rum punches on some tropical beach somewhere as best bitter to that lot out there.
She was this kind of young blonde tart, let's be honest. Shocking and very sexy and very flirty, and Annie really didn't like it. But what she also obviously had the makings of was a great barmaid, and in later years, a great landlady, and she was one of the great landladies of the Rovers.
Bet actually went behind the bar when Arthur Leslie, who played Jack Walker, died in real life. There were an awful lot of bets about. So it was a case of picking bits, like the beehive hairstyle and tacky costume jewellery, the leopard skin, which I very much wanted to sort of incorporate, which was then regarded as quite racy, quite sort of naughty. And now, you know, I mean, you'll see in Vogue magazine, the cleavage, the neckline would be that just too low, too low. As in one particular scene. Of course, the writers were very, very quick. They'd pick up on things like that. And indeed wrote a very funny scene where I think Annie Walker had lent Bet a dress.
I'm sorry I'm late, Mrs. Walker.
Good heavens! Oh, God, blimey.
That is a sensational dress, Bet.
I never knew you had any dresses like that, honey. Bet, you've got it on back to front.
With Bet, what you see is what you get. You know you would always get an honest, even if you didn't want a really honest reply. If you asked her a question, you would get that. Non-threatening, unless she's crossed.
You're so cheap, Mike. So flaming cheap.
This was no pussycat you were dealing with. This was a fully grown, fully fledged leopard with bloody claws, you know, and she'd go for it.
Now, come on, spit it out.
Well, only that 2/3 of what goes in that pot comes from me.
We got on very well. I knew when she was going to dry with her words, and she knew when I was. We had a director once, and we had a scene, just Julie and I, in the back of the bar, and he said, "Now then, you two," he was a film director, he said, "I don't want any of your ums and ahs and ohs and oh and all those things." He said, "I want the words just as they're written on there." Oh my God. Anyway, it was a live scene, this was. And I thought, I've got the first line. I'm not quite sure what it is. So I went hot, and when I perspire, I get hot, hot across my mouth. Julie could see this, so she said my line. Then I said her line, and we did the entire scene, which was about 4 pages. She did all my lines, and I did all hers. And when it came up, I was like a wet rag, you see. We just sat there drinking water, and the director came and said, "That's how I want it in future." I said, you'll be lucky, mate.
A smile from me.
Oh.
Have one yourself, this Ebet, for bringing a bit of glamour into our lives.
She was so of her time as well. You know, it started off with Annie Walker's mono-bosom. Bet brought 2 bosoms into the equation, so she was your archetypal barmaid to flirt with, as well as to tell you problems to. Like all barmaids had hideous problems with men who took her at face value. And she was a classic of putting a face on to face an audience. She performed in the bar. That was her stage. She would do the heartbreak in the back room, but for her punters, she was always there, completely reliable. That was her world.
2 pints, was it there, Raquel?
Yeah, but I can manage on my own for a while. We're quiet.
No need.
You sure?
I'm quite sure. There's been a wedding in the family, or there's about to be. Let's make a big night of it, eh? Give everybody the first drinks on the house.
That character was a gift, really, and just brilliantly played by Julie. I mean, it was the archetypal wisecracking, flirty, busty, blousy barmaid who truly did have a heart of gold and was also very, very vulnerable underneath. Yes, it was funny and pouring pints and I love at the bar, but for me the brilliant parts were when she was like in her bedroom, or when she was just alone in her living room, or chatting to somebody, a man, you know, and he left and she was left there.
Oh, no, love. You don't get rid of me as easily as all that. I live here.
I mean it, Bet.
Those bits were absolutely superb drama. More of that, please.
Despite Bet's disastrous love life, Julie had a ball playing some of those classic Corrie scenes.
Fred, we're moving!
Put the handbrake on!
I've got it!
When the car went into Tatton Park Lake, you know, with Bet and Betty and Fred driving, that was hysterical stuff.
The handbrake! Pull it up! Pull it! Pull it!
I am doing!
Pull it harder!
I can't!
Tough to film, but then comedy is. But being serious then, you know, you got the Rover's fire. Very hard to control real fire. Very frightening. The first time we did it, the fire actually did catch hold and it went out of control, so we had to set another filming date to redo it. I couldn't care less if people confuse me with Bet, because to me that's very complimentary. That means that I have been doing my job as well as I possibly could, so I never ever find it offensive.
Couldn't you just hang on a bit, love? Give me time to get my face on. You look smashing, love.
Bet was back on her feet in no time at all, and good job too. Those famous shoulder pads were needed for Raquel to cry on.
Dry those eyes, powder that button nose, and I'll be right back.
Raquel has to be one of the all-time greats in terms of Rover's barmaids, and Sarah Lancashire did such a fantastic job helping to create that character.
She was an interesting character in that also when she first came in, she was a slightly different character. She came in better buys, and she was clever enough to get the best of Reg.
How far's Buxton?
I don't know why.
I'm going there. Mr. Allsworth just said I'll be in a hotel, all expenses.
Why?
Miss Better by North West Regional Finals.
And somehow or other the character didn't quite gel, and then she was out for months, and they restructured her character, and when she came back in again, she was the Raquel we've seen within the soap now.
And what a transformation. The new Raquel became the best-loved barmaid ever at the Rovers. Sarah Lancashire, who played her, was adored by fans and cast alike.
What, you don't want me here?
No, I don't want you here. No, I wish you'd go back to the Rovers and leave me in peace. Yes.
Oh, well, that's charming. It's charming, is that?
Only I can't do anything about it because this isn't my house, is it? This house is owned by a man. A weak, pathetic man.
Curly?
That's the one, and like most weak, pathetic men, he quite likes having a bimbo around the place.
Just say it again. Go on, just you say that again.
She had heart and she had soul, and people cried with her and they laughed with her.
I loved watching her. I thought she had really something special.
I loved her little silly voice and all these little silly bits of things she wore in her hair. And everything she wore was feminine.
She were definitely a one-off.
Perfect street for her because she was comic but she was tragic the next sentence, and she had a really rubbish time and just, you know, she was absolutely brilliant. And Sarah Lancashire played her just brilliantly.
She has an uncanny ability when the cameras roll to just go totally stupid. She just, you see it in the eyes, it just suddenly goes into Raquel. And it's something I've never seen any other actress do.
So, how much French do you know?
Nothing.
Oh, I bet you do. You think?
Well, I know what baguettes are, and, well, coffee's cafe, red wine's Vin Rouge. Oh, and I met a Frenchman in coffee who taught me how to say, isn't it a lovely day today?
So, there you are. You're not a complete novice.
Learning French. Trying to cope with French with...
Ken is trying to indicate to her how you ask for shoes and various other things, and I think that's a very funny scene and very charming scene.
I want you to say to me, in French, hello, Ken. My name is Raquel. Isn't it a lovely day today, okay?
Oh, clever. Well, here goes. Bonjour, Ken. Je m'appelle Raquel. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir? Oh, Ken. Isn't it important? Communication. Oh, I feel dead sympathy, me.
There was like a simplicity about her, which was lovely.
They laughed at her being stupid, and they laughed at her getting her words wrong, but they felt sorry for her as well. And she had heart, basically. And I think that's the essence of Coronation Street, heart.
She was sent out at the dead of night to have a blind date next to Armani's, and what it turned out to be was a fruit and vegetable shop called Armani, and she was waiting there till 8 o'clock at night for this non-existent man to turn up with all their best gear and everything, and they played a joke on her in the pub, and it was so sad, you know. She didn't realise it was a joke. Armani. Kept looking at it and didn't realise what the joke was.
She was a model. She wanted to be a model. And Tanya Pooley evilly sort of mocked her and says, you're a barmaid and you're not a model. And you felt her heart break.
Quit? Don't be silly. This year, Newton and Ridley. Next year, Pirelli.
Sorry, Jack. She's packed it in because some London photographer told her she had no style, no poise and no class. But what do they know, eh, Raquel?
You really are a grade A bitch.
My favourite barmaid was probably Tanya Pooley because she became this fantastic sort of villainess towards the end, and she was feisty and she was strong. She was everything that a Corrie character should be, and she didn't take any nonsense, and she was good, and then she turned a bit evil at the end before she went, and we love a bit of that.
Takes a bit to getting used to, but she's all right.
No, and who said that? A circus trainer.
Oh, that's a bit harsh, but par for the course in the Rovers. In fact, barmaids are regularly losing their cool and getting into fights. Cat fights.
Get back in your
Don't you push me!
She's only just gone and she's left me in full charge and the flipping ashtrays wants emptying. Dawn, dear.
Alcohol often makes great action.
Blokes only want you for one thing, and that's only because they don't have to pay you for it.
Shut up and order or get out my pub, please.
Things work better with an audience, and when somewhere like a pub there is an audience, and it means that if something happens, it gets round the place like wildfire because everyone's seen it.
You hard-faced cow!
Oh, don't start calling me names.
I will call you, and I'll call you to your face and all.
That's why the sort of unwritten rule is that if something really big's going to happen, let's have it happen in the pub in front of as many people as possible.
You mess with Roy again, and I'll kill you.
You jealous little cow!
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
right.
Actress Jennifer James took on the role of Gina Gregory in 2000 and soon became another street favourite, particularly with one biased fan.
As far as my particular kind of favourite barmaid would go, I'd have to say the wife, obviously.
I've been offered a job at Red Lion.
Oh, no, you don't want to work there.
Oh, but it's full time.
Yeah, but it's dog rough.
My first scene was the most petrifying thing I have ever experienced in my life. Because I've been to drama school and stuff, but I'd never done any television work before. So it was like, it was really scary for me. And I remember walking in and being stood in the Rovers and thinking, they've took me to the wrong place. They've took me to, oh no, somebody should tell them. Because I thought it was the wrong set. It was too small, just because it was tiny, you know, in real life. And I was just stood there and I was in this little bubble and they were saying, and roll and action. And I thought, right, and my lines just came out. God knows how I did it. I don't know, but they did it. I did it. But it was very, very, very scary.
Anyway, you haven't actually offered me the job yet.
Well, choose if you want it. Offering it now.
The thing that I most regret about Coronation Street was buying this red, it was like a red puffer jacket. And I know you're going to show a clip of it. I know you are.
So?
When do I start?
Hey, no time like the present.
And I'm even regretting saying it now. But there's this red puffer jacket that they made me wear in these first couple of episodes. And I hated it. And I look back, I took a picture of me in my very first scene with James Gaddis. And I look back at this picture and they used it in every interview for ages after. I was like, why did I wear that? Why did I get that red puffer jacket? I hated it. So as soon as I could kind of banish it from my wardrobe, I did. I got rid of it.
Oh, Gina, when it's quieter, I'd like you to bottle up, clean the pipes, and change the barrels. Oh, yeah, and could you clean the optics and the ashtrays? Oh, while you're at it, give the shelves a dust, OK?
What will you be doing? When Shelley came to the Rovers, Gina was not happy. Her nose was very pushed out of joint and they never really got on.
I've ordered a new telly for the bar. Should be here any minute. Got to keep my eye out for it.
Right, so you'll just be stood there then while I'm doing all that?
Look, just do as you're told. All right.
Me and Sally got on fantastically in real life. We're like best mates. And we just decided that we were never going to let them get on. And the writers started writing that they started to get on and we were like, no, let's just make it all really nasty and bitchy.
You won't have put up with me much longer, will you? What are you saying? You have to find somebody else to boss around, won't you? Somebody else to get your power-crazed claws into. Because I quit. What? You heard. I'm out of here. Have a nice life.
So we did, we just kept it, that they were all really, really nasty. And the culmination of that was an accident where Gina was carrying this tray of drinks and she tripped over this stool and ended up like spilling tomato juice all down Shelley. But this scene was hilarious. We had to do it so many times, bless her. And this one scene, they decided before they did the one that was used on television that they wanted it all over her face and dripping down her face. But they said it looked too graphic. Like the scene after was in the living room with her in this big argument. And it looked like she had blood dripping all down her face and all down her top. So they thought, we've got to do it again. So we had to do it. They had to wash the top, dry the top. So we were like waiting around for ages. And they had to do it again.
Next time to take. Thank you.
Join us in part 3 when we talk to the person responsible for giving Britain its best-known pub.
For many working class people, the pub was an extra and more comfortable room in their house. They went out to the pub, and of course the pub was always known as the fastest way out of Salford.
And we remember the most stuck-up pint puller in Corrie history.
Yeah, you wouldn't mess with Annie Walker. She was tough, man. She'd take no crap.
Barmaids come and barmaids go, but they all have something to live up to. Coronation Street's tradition for tough, feisty women.
Coronation Street has always been synonymous with strong women, weak beer and weak men.
I was brought up to believe the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. I was probably brought up to believe that because all the men were away fighting the war and all the women were in charge.
Well, what are you doing out in your best?
We're going out.
Have secrets, I would.
Oh, only to the Luxina. Reduced matinee OAPs. We thought we'd get off a bit on the early side, so we stand a chance of getting a seat at front.
What's on?
It's a cowboy.
You ought to go getting too near the front if you find yourself with sun in your eyes.
I saw them capable of doing anything and everything, plus all the things they'd always done. And all of that went into those early episodes. These were the women who'd won the war.
Hello, love.
Landlady Annie Walker was the epitome of a northern type, from the side streets, but more than a bit stuck up.
Annie Walker, first landlady of the Rovers. What a brilliant character. A snob. It's great to have a character you can sum up in a single word.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Walker, was you waiting to tell me something?
Yes, that you are suspended until further notice.
I'd had Doris in my mind from the moment I dreamed up Annie, because I'd seen her on the stage when I was a little boy, being quite remarkable. She was very grand, and yet there was just a hint of Gracie Fields coming through this very grand.
Annie Walker was the queen of the Rovers, and there has never been anybody to touch her as the queen.
Now, you go to bed, love. I'm going to have a nice long soak in the bath and relax.
She was incredible. She was, I think, the precursor of Hyacinth Bouquet.
There won't be any hot water, will there?
Oh, there should be. It was boiling when we left. I'll just go and see.
I don't know.
Doris Speed appeared in the very first episode of The Street back in the early 60s and went on to play Snobbish Annie in over 1,700 episodes.
If she thought you were wasting time talking to people that maybe she wasn't too keen about, then there'd be, dear, I think there's someone over here who needs to be served. Would you mind?
Oh, Concepta, love. Deal with Mrs. Sharple.
Thank you, love. As only Annie Walker could.
Take not the name of the Lord thy God in vain. 2 halves a mile and a packet of crisps.
Doris Speed, bless her. She was wonderful. She could freeze ice at 50 paces, I tell you. And a warm, lovely, lovely lady to work with, so pro. Used to frighten the hell out of me.
And Mrs. Annie Walker, if you didn't want to be known as Lady Godiva, you shouldn't have flaunted yourself in your nakedness in the first place. I take it everybody heard?
There'll never be another Annie Walker, nor should there be.
Annie Walker may be the undisputed queen of the Rovers, but the first ever barmaid, Concepta Riley, soon became a member of the Rovers' royal family.
Now, just a dab behind your knees and you'll be all set. Behind me where?
My first scene was arriving at the Rovers' return to be greeted by Annie and Jack.
Concepta was representative of that whole army of Irish bar staff who came over across the water because there was no work for them in Ireland. And when they arrived here, they lived with the families. Sometimes in some pubs they were treated as little better than servants. In others, they were almost family. And that was certainly the case with Concepta.
I had another letter from my father and mother this morning. Oh. The screwdriver is in the kitchen cabinet, Jack.
Oh, all right, all right.
What did they say? They're against us. Oh, still. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm in such a muddle, I don't know what to do. Oh.
After working on Coronation Street, Doreen has gone on to great things. Shows like Father Ted, Cold Feet, and of course, The Royal Family.
I never thought I'd be good at it, but apparently I developed quite a talent for pulling a pint, and I got an award from one of the breweries for pulling the best pint on television.
The award for longest serving barmaid on TV must go to Betty Williams, played by the ever-present Betty Driver.
I love Betty. 34 years behind the bar at the Rovers. I can't quite imagine the place without her, actually.
She's a bit of a kind of Les Dawson barmaid, isn't she, with kind of heaving bosom and kind of tutting and turning away and all that. I think she's brilliant.
Betty Driver, who plays her, has this wonderful ability to steal an entire scene, maybe an entire episode, with a single line.
I mean, there's 3 of us work behind this bar. Well, most of the time, 2 of us work while you're off preening yourself.
You what?
You heard.
I think Betty just is so much a part of the fabric of the Rovers.
A producer came to see me when I was running a pub with my sister, and he said, why don't you come and pull pints in the Rovers' return? So I said, oh, I don't know. I said, I'll ask Frida, because she's my boss, you see. So I was terrified. Oh, God, I've never been so frightened in my life, and yet I've been on the stage since I was 9.
No, I don't need fine feathers, just my sunny personality.
Why are you looking like a flipping cockatoo, then?
Betty has been in the Rovers forever, I mean, and she's looked the same for years as well. It's kind of like she just walks in the background carrying plates of hot pot.
They asked me, would I write a hot pot recipe? I said, no, no, I won't. I don't know how to cook it. So Frida made me one out, and we're still using the same recipe. I mean, I sent thousands of these recipes out. People write in and say, would you send me a recipe of your hot pot? Well, you've only got to look in a cookery book. There's hundreds of them.
She's just such a lovely woman and so kind, and she's got more energy than me and Sally put together. We'd be like that by the end of the day, and Betty'd be like, come on, girls, let's keep going.
Personally, we got on extremely well together, but it was hell on wheels working with her because she always made me laugh. Walked into the Rovers set, and there stood Jack and Annie Walker. She looked a bit frosty-faced. She wasn't sort of terribly friendly, but Jack Walker, Arthur Leslie, was, well, is an angel. He said, are you all right? I said, I'm ever so frightened. He said, don't worry, Betty. Now, don't worry. Every scene that you're in, I'm with you. So he said, you'll know I'm there because I put my hand on your back. So I will give you confidence. And, you know, he did that. And in all my years, 83 years, I've never, ever had anybody so lovely and so kind as him.
You know, I think just over that poster advertising threepence off the tin peaches would be the most conspicuous place.
Yeah.
Thank you. You were a great help.
What do you expect me to say to all that taradiddle?
As she got older, she couldn't remember her lines at all, you see. She had a terrible difficulty. And my first husband died, Cyril. And it was the day of the funeral, and we sat in my little sitting room in the house. And just before the take, she said, excuse me, dear, are you going to be moving about a lot? So I said, well, no. No, I'm going to be sitting here with you doing my lines. Are you sure you won't be moving? You won't be moving your arms or your legs? I said, no, why? Well, she said, right, well, I'll pin my script. And she pinned her entire scene all down the side of my arm there and right down my leg. And there I sat.
You must decide when you feel really able to come back to us.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. She read it from my arm and leg. Oh, well, I couldn't remember it, darling. I just couldn't remember it. Isn't it wonderful? Oi, what are you doing? It's my job serving the food.
Betty may have been the Rovers' hot pot totty for over 30 years, but she'd better watch out. There's someone waiting in the wings to take over.
I have a secret wish, that when my days as an agony aunt are over, I will retire to behind the bar in the Rovers, and there I will be in all my glory, pulling the pints, dishing out the advice, bringing on the pot pies. Move over, Betty Williams, your days are nearly done.
The only thing Betty ever pulled was a pint, which is more than can be said for many Corrie barmaids. Most have had more men than helpings of Betty's hot pot. Where is Denise Robertson when you've got man trouble and need some advice?
I think the barmaids, I mean, even Shelley, you think, looks sensible. I've just got this awful tradition of picking the world's worst hopeless cases.
Never trust a barmaid, because not only can they pull a pint, they'll pull your bloke.
Gina was the centre of a great love triangle with Dev and Joe. Doomed from the start, of course.
Gina ended up splitting up with Dev when she found out about his affair with Deirdre. You want us to still be friends, do you?
Yeah.
Grow up, Dev. Yes, Vic. So she was a single girl, and then in walks Joe Carter. Who she went, hello, he's nice.
So, what's he like then?
Yeah, he's all right, you know.
But you were talking to him, you don't know what he's like?
Well, he told me he worked for Baldwin, and then he asked me if you've got a boyfriend.
Yeah, and what did you say?
Well, I told him he was free as a bird, didn't I?
Oh, good answer. I like that. And then what did he say back?
Oh, then he asked me to ask my girlfriend to ask you if you fancied him.
Really?
No, of course he didn't. What's this? You bloke walks in the pub, you start acting like a couple of teenagers.
So they got talking, and she was kind of giving him advice about buying a new flat and stuff. And he ended up asking her out, and then obviously this caused ructions with Dev.
Nice girl, eh?
Dev wasn't very happy because he still obviously loved Gina, and because she'd finished with him.
Jenny was fabulous to work with, just great.
We had such a laugh because obviously I was his first female lead.
It was always Jenny who said, do you mind if we just go over these scenes, love? Do you mind? And I go, no, I'd love to. And so we did, and then we'd do it again, and then we'd do it again and again and again. And I'd get completely paranoid thinking she just wants to keep doing it because I've not got it right yet, or I've got it wrong.
Hopefully, he felt that helped him settle in. I hope so, anyway.
I was just thinking the worst and thinking that she thinks I'm rubbish and she thinks I can't do it, and perhaps if we do it enough times, I'll get it right.
In the end, because of Gina, they end up having this fight. Oh, it all went on and on and on from there.
The young barmaids are just as bad. Remember Maria with her best friend's fella? The minx.
You should try modelling.
You reckon, dear?
Why not? Good-looking girl like you. Bet they're crying out for that fresh-faced look.
Yeah, but I thought it was only stupid people that become models.
Hey, no fishing for compliments now.
She slept with Toya's boyfriend, John, the older man, the lecturer, so, or lecture, as the papers were calling him.
Just work. Go on.
I did a little bit of research when I found out that I was going to be involved in the termination storyline. I sort of got some leaflets through and stuff. But to be honest, it wasn't sort of more centred on the termination, it was sort of more the moral.
Oh, don't mind me. So this is what she gets up to when she's supposed to be studying, eh? Oh, you little devils.
Ian, nab that and all. Fizz, it's not what it looks like, honestly.
You and him? I don't believe this. You're supposed to be Toya's friend.
Please don't say anything to her.
You cow.
Quite, Fizz. And from you cow to you bet.
One marriage, one divorce, and a succession of love rats.
You ready?
Whenever you are, love.
That's not many over 25 years, is it? Compared by today's standards, really. She's almost virginal.
Virginal? Perhaps not a term Don Brennan would use.
Don Brennan's at his lowest, and Bet Lynch is serving him drinks and talking to him quite seriously. She calls time and all this sort of thing, and she walks to the door and she locks the door and bolts the door.
Come on through to the house.
Huh? And you know that Don Brennan is going to stay here.
Who'd have bet on that? And even a young Jack Duckworth fancied a flutter.
Still baffles me, you know, how a knockout-looking bird like you doesn't have the fellas knocking the door down.
Oh, they do, love. The trouble is, most of them seem to be married.
We could make great music together, you know, you and me.
Hey, do you fancy a sing-song? Tell you what, you set off, I'll join in.
Nice try, Jacko, but let's not forget country and western honky haulier, Charlie Whelan.
You mean you too? Yes, we're lovers. And we have been for some time.
Bet.
Just go.
Nasty little trucker. Finally, one man came good for Bet and got her up the aisle. Alec Gilroy.
You're late.
It's a bride's privilege.
And another thing.
What?
How well do you know Jack Duckworth?
I loved the Bet and Alec stuff.
I remember watching scenes with them and crying, laughing.
There were so many great stories for them. It was such an odd yet kind of believable partnership.
I have run myself silly up and down them stairs, tending to your every whim. And I have got this pub running like clockwork, which I could only do with a little help from a friend. And that friend happens to be Betty Turpin, all right?
No, it's not all right.
Well, I'm sorry, but when you're fit and back in charge, you can sack her again, can't you?
Don't think I won't.
That's it. Well done. There you go. My first pint.
A few years later, and Natalie Barnes let Leanne Battersby loose at the pumps. What followed was classic Rovers drama, and it was all due to one man.
Jez Quigley was a bad egg.
It started off in a kind of your typical sort of soap way because she became addicted to drugs very, very quickly and ended up in rehab very, very in that sort of very short space of time, as you kind of have to do in the world of soap.
Hello, sweetheart.
What do you want?
Very nice of you to ask. 3 pints of lager, please. And when you're ready.
I think it's much easier when like a character like Jez Quigley is kind of going after Steve MacDonald character, for example, because it's like two men sort of at each other. But when there's a kind of the woman is the focal point, there's that sort of infatuation thing as well that kind of colours it a little bit more.
The more we got to know him, we realised he was a nutter. He was a real baddie who Leanne got kind of swept into, and he took her along a real rocky road of drugs and goodness knows what else.
Now, why don't you go through and get yourself ready for me? And I'll prepare as a little, hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah, what Jez Quigley did to Leanne Battersby as well was diabolical. You know, she was meant to be his girlfriend. He got her hooked on drugs, and then when she couldn't afford to pay him for the drugs, he made her pay with sex, which is just strange in the extreme.
I was quite fortunate that I had some good scenes, one of which was throwing a chair and smashing up the Rovers, which was quite good fun.
I'm not helping you, so why don't you just get lost?
You're making a big mistake, you are.
Did you not hear me? I said,
You're nuts!
I really enjoyed that, it was good fun.
Yeah, it was great, and Jane's a cracking actress as well, so, and she was always very open to sort of anything, really.
Join us after the break as we call Last Orders. How do barmaids decide when it's time to bow out from the programme? And we visit the real star of the show.
The Rovers return. That was the best love interest.
The list of big-name actors who have appeared in the street is endless, but the real star of the show is the Rovers' return in itself. For 43 years, the beating heart of Coronation Street.
When Tony Warren conceived this programme with a pub on the street corner that was the heart of the community, he created so many things in terms of the genre, but one of the things he created was the idea of a pub at the heart of a community, which has been echoed so many times in so many other programmes.
In those very early episodes, the Rovers' return was the most important location in the whole programme. If I'd had to, if I'd not been allowed to have a whole street, I could have set the whole thing in the Rovers with noises off. But I had a world outside. But you see, I could get that world together in the Rovers. I could make unlikely people meet without in any way finagling and putting odd people together. They met quite naturally. They bumped into one another in the Rovers, and there you got the beginnings of the story.
It's not a pub, it's a stage for everybody's heartache, tears, joy to be played out upon.
The rest of it was behind closed doors, lace curtains. The viewers could peep in. But in that bar, all of life would take place.
I don't think she'll care what happens to Coronation Street, but I know if it were me, I'd be worried.
It's as though the Rovers are the centre of a spider's web, and everything spins out from the Rovers. But equally, you can draw the whole story back to the centre of the web, and that's always there.
Have you heard this, Betty? Brewery's orders. Recruit younger staff.
Now listen, I've promised to give you a good reference. Can I be fairer than that?
You know where you can stick your reference.
It has changed many times over the years. The back room decor has changed, the decor of the pub has changed, the clientele have changed to a certain degree. I think what you find now is that what we're tending to do is place the action in other pubs as well, such as the Weatherfield Arms or Nexus, which is the wine bar that we've made, or even in the Italian restaurant, just to make it a little bit more believable. I think the working class pub on the corner of a working class street is still there, but it perhaps isn't frequented quite as much as it was in the old days, and people tend to spread their wings a little bit further and have more cosmopolitan tastes.
I can't imagine ever Coronation Street not having the Rovers return.
Now, when pouring a bottle of stout, take a 12-ounce glass, place the thumb 2.5 to 3 inches below the top.
On the outside?
Yes, dear, on the outside, of course. And then you aim the stout at the thumb, this time on the inside. Yes, that way you control the flow and you don't get a big head shooting over the bar.
No, we've enough big heads in here, haven't we, Jack? And I love. If anybody asks you for a gin and tonic, open the tonic, but don't pour it all in.
No, and hygiene. When you pull in a pint, don't let the froth go over your nozzle.
Thumb tonic nozzle.
By Jove, she's got it, she's got it.
There are many scenes that the bar staff appear in where they're not at the centre of the action. They're in the background. They're pulling pints. They're collecting glasses. They're serving up the drinks.
They have, in fact, the most difficult task of all, because what they're doing is actually totally unscripted.
You're not just an actor, you actually have to be a barmaid.
Of course, the bar staff have to be in every Rovers scene. You know, somebody has to be behind that bar. So they may come in and do a very long day, 10 or 12 hours, maybe 8 or 10 scenes. And they might only be at the centre of a couple of them. Also, they're on their feet, almost by definition, for the vast majority of that time.
I remember Denise Welsh and I had very, very, very large platform flip-flops, which were great because you only generally see from the waist up. So that's what you need, good shoes.
If you ask someone who works behind a real bar how tiring it is, I think it's the same kind of physical strain working behind the fictional bar.
My mum and dad had a pub. So I'd got all the research I needed, basically. I knew how to pull a pint. And so, yeah, it was absolutely fine. It kind of came quite naturally to me, really.
It's the hardest gig on the show. You know, your background, are you passing, you're collecting glasses, you're saying, yes, Ken, no, Ken, 68p, please.
142, please.
250, please, Ken. Sometimes you have a 12-hour day and you have 2 lines. because you are some days an overpaid extra.
You actually have to pull the pints, you actually have to kind of do everything. You've got to be in the scenes at the right point. So it is kind of being more of a barmaid than actually a barmaid is, really.
And it's quite strange because you're actually in a pub at the bar with a pint of, obviously not a pint, it's like shandy, pint of Newton and Ridley. And so you've got all the extras in the background going, oh yeah. And but there's no noise, so it's really strange that you're doing a scene at the bar with somebody, but you're in a pub and there's no noise. So everything, you know, and always, you know, what we all tend to do is, for some reason, the start of the scene, you have a drink, and then you say, anyway, what I was saying is, and at the end of the scene, you go, well, yeah.
In the life of every barmaid, a moment comes when she knows she's pulled her last pint and it's time to say goodbye. When Raquel Watts left the street, a nation wept.
Keep an eye on him for me. Good luck, kid. Send us a postcard, eh?
I loved Raquel. I thought she was lovely. She was feminine, she was fey, she was pretty. I was heartbroken when she left the Rovers.
Gina, you okay?
What do you care?
It was the gruesome twosome, Joe and Dev, that caused Gina to quit.
They both kind of used her so much, and she was so manipulated by them both that I think in the end she'd just had enough, and she'd lost all that original, you know, that original feistiness and that spark, and I think she realised that.
Where are you going?
I don't know. But wherever it is, it won't involve you.
So, yeah, she up sticks and left.
If you have worked in the Rovers, you get to join a unique club, the Licensed Order of Ex-Corrie Barmaids.
If I was in my 20s, as I was when I started then, I would go back and do it all again. I had a ball.
Yeah, I do have fond memories, and I think I was quite lucky because Denise Welsh and I helped each other out, and, you know, it was a good time.
The street has changed over the years very much, and barmaids are probably a reflection. They've got to be a little more streetwise now, I suppose, a bit smarter, a bit quicker. But I think barmaids have changed very much in line with the way the street has changed.
You do get a sense of power when you're standing behind the counter.
Being in the street is amazing. It's an amazing thing. It has its massive ups and it has its massive downs, but there's a lot more ups than downs. It's just a dream, really. So I still pinch myself.